Welcome back to another episode of these crazy people that keep eating meat and can't shut up about it. Today, me and Justin are taking on one of the mouthpieces of the plant-based world. In this video that we're going to critique, he doesn't necessarily eschew eating meat quite as much, but really it's all about selling chocolate shakes made out of spirulina and flax seeds at the end of the day. So we hope you find it interesting. And Justin, what do you got? What do you got to say for our intro?
Oh yeah, hello everybody. Welcome to another Epidose. Just want to make sure you guys are subscribed, staying subscribed, giving us a like or a downvote if you hate it. If you're a vegan, if you're a fan of Dr. Gundry and you don't think we're being fair or you like his products, have you tried the chocolate shake? Do you drink any chocolate shakes? Yeah, let's hear about it. What are you doing for your health is always a great thing we want to hear about. Is there anything we could do to help you on your health journey? And as always, what do you want us to cover in upcoming videos? What's interesting to you? What questions would you like to ask us so that we can answer them, possibly, maybe? And we're really trying hard now to elevate the conversation. So if there is a question, we will do some research and get back to you if we don't know it right offhand in an upcoming video. So thank you. We do appreciate the watching, the listening, and the liking.
Yeah, and just a little background on how this video came to be on my radar. It's my good friend AA Ron opened an email from, I don't know, I'll probably get hate mail just for saying it, but the NRA. And he's like, hey, do you think the NRA is going plant-based? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, check this out. And this looked like an article in the email because the email was full of articles, but really it's just an ad. And my buddy was listening to this video and this ad, and then realizing what he was talking about. And it kind of threw him for a loop because it's not usually the kind of people that advertise, much less feature in articles. So anyways, that's how it got on my radar. And we started getting into conversation about IGF-1 and stuff like that. So anyways, I did a video on Gundry's book, Plant Paradox, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. It's probably time for an update, but I thought, why not? Let's do a video. Let's get into it because, Gundry's one of these guys that shows up on, the morning, what do you call those morning shows, on the news or whatever and stuff like that, pitching books and stuff like that. But the primary purpose of this one is because he sells these chocolate shakes, right? And it's not that I disagree with him on everything, but there's some key features here. So it's a long video. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. I'll also put my notes. I pulled up some of the studies ahead of time. So that's another reason, if you guys want to support the show and the time it takes to produce stuff like this, at least give us a comment in YouTube under the video. But if you pass the links on, other people find it interesting and stuff like that, and subscribe to the channel, it really helps. Otherwise, it's kind of tough to spend a lot of time, digging into this stuff and finding all the studies. I mean, nobody finds them all. I mean, nobody has time. So, and we don't have time to go through the whole video, but you'll get the gist of it. We hope you enjoy it as much as we do. And at the very least, we get to poke fun at a doctor with spindly little arms, can sarcopenic himself. So I don't know. It's like he's got this giant head with this tiny little neck. So I feel bad. Like if he falls down, he's going to hurt himself. So,
all right, who could win in the ring? Me versus Dr. Gundry. Think I could take him down?
Oh, poor Gundry wouldn't stand a chance. So as his glasses fell off, he'd be done. So anyways, I'm going to share the screen here. We're gonna play a little Dr. Gundry's commercial for chocolate shakes. And you don't know it's a commercial for quite some time, but we'll get rolling and then we're gonna pause and comment.
The right protein can help you lose huge amounts of weight, but the wrong protein will destroy your health.
So Justin, what's the right protein? What's the wrong protein?
Well, I mean, I suppose the right protein would be a protein that's the most bioavailable and easiest on the digestion, the gut, that your body can actually use, I would imagine is the right protein. My assumption is that his answer is going to be different.
Yeah, and I would say the right protein is going to be animal protein, preferably like grass-fed ruminant protein, because that protein comes packaged with animal fat and all the amino acids are going to be in the right ratio. And of course, plant protein would be the alternative. And not only are the amino acids in the wrong ratios, but there's certain essential components that just don't exist in plants. So
cardiologist Stephen Gundry says he solved the weight loss mystery.
You really have changed.
So he solved the weight loss mystery. Was there a big mystery there, Justin? What do you think? You think Gundry solved a mystery or what?
Well, I mean, I think many people have solved the weight loss mystery several times over. It's, that's why there's Weight Watchers, there's fitness programs. I mean, losing weight is not the problem, I don't think. I mean, it's a thing and it's a problem and it can be related to a host of other problems, but there's many different diets and ways of eating that can get you to lose weight, including just not eating. So I don't see the big mystery there,
Yeah, so there's a lot of diets that'll take weight off of you, but of course we'd like to elevate the conversation. So we like to think of it in terms of what's the healthier diet, and it's not just a matter of losing weight, it's about having better body composition, right?
Yeah, and I think above that, I'm really kind of trying to hone on in the benefit of muscle, not watching the scale, but just, you should, I mean, maybe not max out on muscle in your body to where you lose flexibility and agility, but muscle, protects joints, it protects, your bones and things like that. The more muscle you have, the more balance you have. You're able to defend yourself against falls, attack, etc. And there's even like associations between being able to keep memory IQ associated with higher percentages of muscle on the body. It's really crazy when you start really delving into the importance of muscle.
So how much muscle do you think you can build on flaxseed and spirulina?
I mean, I guess if you're injecting flaxseed and spirulina, maybe there's upper limits. I mean, I fully understand that there are vegan bodybuilders, right. But they don't seem to be able to keep that up very long. And usually when they hop on that train, they're already pretty bulked up from being more omnivore. There's no one that started as a vegan bodybuilder at age, 18 and then started competing at age 25 and they're, that bulked up and swole,
Well, and all the guys we hear from, those guys are all taking steroids and growth hormone and stuff like that. And that stuff can be plant derived. So, they might be genuine vegans, but they're cheating in a way that most people aren't willing to cheat. I mean, are you considering using growth hormone and testosterone and all that stuff, Justin?
No, I mean, I've considered it, but I don't think I'm probably not good for me. And
right.
There's a lot of trouble with that. And I know there's debate and all that. That could probably be a different video in and of itself. But
Sure.
at the same time, I'm always looking for what's sustainable across time. I'm 33. What can I do now that I could still keep up at 43, 53, 63? And people on steroids, they seem to not be able to have a decades long history with it without some complications of some sort.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're all inclined to kind of pursue the natural path with just eating the right food, right? He wants to start taking a bunch of drugs, right? I mean, it's costs money and it's,
Unless it's super male vitality. That's of course,
oh, I see. So, anyways, that's your secret. Well, one of the things that we missed in the video there was they flash on the screen, and I think Gundry says everything you've been told is a lie. So
I don't think he said that yet. I think we're barely like 30 seconds into the video, Tom. I don't think he said much of anything yet.
yeah, I think we did. I think it was right at the beginning, and we missed it
Okay.
when I was starting and stopping. So I just wanted to say, I think that sounds a bit like fear mongering, because I don't think the real problem is that everything is a lie. It's more like there's so much conflicting information out there. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. And most of that's driven by advertising, like people want to sell chocolate shakes. So anyways, let's play on.
It's the way I think about what I eat.
Best book I've seen on diet ever.
You did all this research. You were 70 pounds heavier. What did you change? What did you stop eating? What did you start eating?
So I used to be 70 pounds overweight, and I was running 30 miles a week. I was going to the gym 1 hour every.
Now, I'm just going to say, could you see that guy running the fat Dr. Gundry, the 70 pounds heavier guy? Do you really think he was running 30 miles a week?
I mean, maybe, but I usually, I think it has to do with pace and intensity and how long that was taking him. I mean, you can run, if he's doing 2-hour runs every day at like a 13-mile pace, maybe, but he's not doing no 6-mile runs at, at a 30 miles a week,
Well, and the other thing too, if he'd been hitting the gym every day for years, I'd hope he'd be pressing a lot more on the Smith machine right there too, because that's like barely enough weight to keep the breeze from moving it. So
I will say in cross country, there was one of the kids that I ran with. He started out and he was kind of big. He may have been 40 pounds overweight, but he was shorter than me. So he looked big. And, he'd run the best that he could. And by the end of like the second year, like sophomore year, he was pretty slimmed down. I think he lost like 30 pounds or something,
nice.
Which was really good. I never got in a diet with him or anything like that. Of course, being high school students, we all eat a terrible diet as high school students. So, Gatorade and pizza was like what you had before a run.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend like you can just look at a picture or even a video of somebody and predict their health. People get into all these weird, photo analysis of people, and they're like, they look at one picture and they go, oh, that person is doing this and that person's doing that from one photograph of their face, So anyways, we're just poking fun at Dr. Gundry anyhow. But yeah, I don't know.
And I'm sorry, I've got to say, he makes a big deal out of losing 70 pounds. And no, don't get me wrong. That's awesome and fantastic and stuff like that. But there's several people in the keto and carnivore community that have lost 100+ pounds, like triple, like our obesity crisis is not an issue of 70 pounds. Yeah, that's bad. That's not great. The American obese, that's like our childhood obesity crisis is like 70 pounds and it's horrible and everything. And again, not knocking it. If you're 70 pounds over, I know it's a lot of weight and it really sucks and everything, but it's we're now at a point where the average overweight, we're talking 120, 150, 200 pounds over, what their frame can hold. That is, we got seriously obese people. So it's a great victory. But to me, losing 70 pounds, knowing other people, knowing the community is not impressive to me.
Right. Well, and I mean, Gundry does what most people do, is he uses weight loss as the hook, right? Or the bait.
Right.
And, we like to elevate the conversation and help people understand that, this is really about making healthier choices, and weight isn't the only factor, right? And in fact, it's probably better to use measurements like, like I was saying the other day, it's like if your muscles are getting bigger and your waist is getting smaller, you're moving in the right direction. And the scale may not tell you that, right?
Right.
So in fact, the scale may tell you the opposite. Now, if you're on a diet, even a carnivore diet, and you're gaining body fat, then you're moving in the wrong direction, right? You got to make some corrections, because like a lot of people, they just eat meat, they start feeling better, their physique goes to where they want it, and they don't have to put a whole lot of thought into it. But there's a lot of people that do, and there are some nuances and there's some special situations, right? So it's not just about eating meat for everyone, right?
Right. I don't know. I want to get to the video, but I also want to bicker about that. So it's okay.
Well, bicker on. You could bicker every time I stop. How about that?
Fat vegetarian diet, and no matter what I did, I couldn't lose weight.
Then Dr. Gundry discovered a remarkable scientific breakthrough that changed everything.
Science in the kitchen, where all science breakthroughs happen in the
You
kitchen.
don't need to add anything to your diet. You just need to take away one simple thing. One of these foods helps you lose weight.
And he's got pizza there. And if I'm not mistaken, that pizza's actually got slices of tomato on it instead of pepperoni. It's like a subtle disguise.
Right. And that looks like diet cheese. Looks like a vegan cheese on it. That ain't no milk cheese. I can tell you that.
Probably. And then those taco like things, I couldn't tell you what kind of tacos those are.
Those look like shrimp tacos from Rubio's. I know exactly what that picture is from. That's Rubio's
Shrimp, could
shrimp
be
tacos.
white cod or something. I don't know.
Might be Rubio's fish tacos. Rubio's, if you want to sponsor us, go ahead. Your food is delicious. Not really great carnivore friendly, but I'll still promote you because it's freaking good.
Well, and spoiler alert, the bad food here is the hot dog, right?
Right.
And this is a perfect point, a perfect place to make the point that people are eating a hot dog and it's got a bun, and in this case, it's got ketchup and mustard on it, right? And that's not taken into account. They simply say you're eating a hot dog, every hot dog you eat per day increases your chance of heart attack by 30%, right? Or something ridiculous like that. It comes up. But they don't talk about the bun or the ketchup or whatever. They just assume it's the meat, right?
Like you have no choice. Like when you go to the store, right, and buy hot dogs, the buns and the ketchup and mustard are already all together in one package, right? You just throw it in the microwave, and then that's how you eat a hot dog.
The
right?
weird thing is you buy this kit with the mustard, the ketchup, the relish, the mayonnaise, the buns, and the hot dogs, right? And they give you 10 hot dogs and 8 buns, right? And then you always have leftover mustard. So I don't know who dreams up these kits, and I don't know why that's the only way we could buy hot dogs. But yeah, you're right. So something wrong with that plan.
Wait, one of these foods significantly reduces food cravings, but one of these foods increases your risk of heart disease by a staggering 20%. Do you know what you switched?
Citation needed.
Right? Yeah, there's no study on this one. He does put the I'll stop it when I get it. He does mention some actual studies and references them in here, which I applaud him for at least mentioning one of them. So
And I made this video to give you a quick protein quiz that could actually save your life.
protein
Because
quiz.
eating the right protein can help you lose.
Did you notice the food pyramid chart behind him?
No, I didn't.
It's all vegetables on the bottom. So, and you know, one of the things about this video is they don't let you rewind it all. So you just have to play it through. You can pause it and that's it. So
Weight, get stronger bones, and even help protect your heart. It can also help reduce digestive discomfort and give you smoother, more regular bowel movements. It can boost your mood, support brain health, and even help support healthy blood pressure and blood sugar levels. And
Does it make you like less
what cravings in their tracks?
what's the word for friction when you're
Diet.
when you're going down the slide and your butt
Yeah.
hot. Yeah.
it makes
Whichever
you more
one is-
aerodynamic, I guess.
Magic protein makes you more aerodynamic and
Yeah.
increases your backside lubrosity.
You can experience profound benefits I've seen in thousands of patients who finally got rid of health problems that have been nagging them for years, and changes I've seen in myself every day when I look in the mirror, including losing 70 pounds of weight and keeping it off for 20 years. Because I do this simple thing every day, and now in my late 60s, I've never felt better in my life. There's just one problem. Millions of Americans are eating one specific protein that's now been shown to be toxic to your health. Even worse, many people are eating this every single day and have no idea it could lead to heart disease, stroke, and even cancer. This has become a major health issue in America. So in the next couple minutes, I'm going to reveal to you the truth about protein. I'm also going to reveal the one food that, in my opinion, you must stop eating immediately, because eating this just once a day could increase your risk for heart disease by 20%. And I'll bet it's in your refrigerator right now. I'll also tell you the stunning secret to a slimmer, stronger body.
None of the real people have looked like that in the cartoon. Just throwing that out.
Well, and if this guy really does he look like a guy who runs 30 miles a week and works out every day? I mean, here we've seen video of Gundry over and over again. And does he look like a guy who works out that much?
No, he doesn't. I mean, look at his arm. I mean, his arm.
No, look at that
is-
tiny little arm. It's
Like my arm is thicker than his, and I have like the world's tiniest frame.
I have a theory. You know, he was early into the robotic surgeries. I'm thinking that might have been because he's having trouble holding up the scalpels. And I've yet to understand exactly why it is he thinks horse nutrition is so important. Just like the study that he quotes was done on mice. They fed mice a bunch of protein, mice that were bred to grow tumors, a bunch of protein. And then he extrapolates from that there's this giant, impactful piece of information behind it.
Yes.
Maybe he's trying to sell us ivermectin.
Yeah. Does your horse have worms? I like that. I mean, the whole thing about Joe Rogan, they say Joe Rogan was taking horse dewormer. I mean, really? Yeah, you know, ivermectin saved millions of human lives, and they make it sound like, you know, they can't help but turn Joe Rogan into a crackpot because he threw the kitchen sink at a COVID infection.
Protein hack you can do just a few times a week.
Protein
Boost your
hack,
energy,
biohacking with Dr.
improve
Gundry.
digestion, and achieve the whole body health you deserve. And
Obviously,
no,
we
getting
need
slimmer
more
and
yoga.
healthier
See that meatless
This
burger,
burger.
tofu, and broccoli. He's poo-pooing those ideas. So again, here's something we agree with.
does not involve giving up meat. In fact, you're about to learn that some meat is actually healthier than certain vegetables, and that the key to a long, healthy life really just comes down to one easy, simple to do protein hack. Again, my name is Dr. Stephen Gundry, and I'm a
There's more than one hack in this video.
cardiothoracic surgeon and triple New York Times bestselling author and nutritionist with medical practices in Palm Springs and Santa Barbara, California. I graduated
The
with
rough
honors from
spots.
Yale University and received my medical doctorate from the Medical College of Georgia. I spent 16 years as a professor of surgery and pediatrics and chairman of cardiothoracic surgery at the world-famous Loma Linda University School of Medicine.
All right, I got to go on my Loma Linda diatribe. So for those of you who don't know, Loma Linda University is a Seventh-day Adventist organization, and they are a group, a religious group, actually a Christian cult, who sort of promotes the what we call a plant-based diet now, but what they call the Garden of Eden diet. And the reason why they promote it is because one of their founders, or their central founder, was a lady named Ellen G. White, who was struck in the face with a rock as a child, went into a coma and woke up and declared she was a prophet of God, and started talking about this Garden of Eden diet that we needed to live on. So no surprise, and I think if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Paul Saladino also went to Loma Linda, as did a number of the other plant-based / vegan vegetarian doctors. And by all accounts, I've met many Seventh-day Adventists, and they are all nice people, all the ones I met, and they're all very much interested in being healthy and helping people and stuff like that. They're not bad people, but the thing is, they promote a diet based on information from somebody who claimed to be God's prophet. And I mean, if you don't believe that Ellen G. White was a prophet of God, you might want to reconsider the Garden of Eden diet, because two of the biggest influences in the whole vegan, vegetarian, plant-based diet thing is the Loma Linda community. Also, they have a bunch of products in Australia, I believe, that's sold under the name of Sanitarium. Is that right? If you guys watch that movie Road to Wellville, you'll learn about this, Harvey Kellogg and all that stuff, and his Sanitarium. But anyways, the other place where we get all this vegan, vegetarian influence is from India, from superstitions that started 2,000 years ago, that become sort of religious, kind of gets revitalized by Gandhi, more of a like, don't eat meat, but it's okay to drink milk kind of vegetarian, but none of this stuff and none of this culture or religion is based in science, right? So when you hear guys like Gundry, this is where they come from, right?
Well, and what's worse is that they, so like you said, it's not based in science, but they infiltrate, the medical field and all that. So they bend the science to match the ideology.
Right.
Which is why all this gets spread and everything. And, there's studies and all this stuff, but you actually dig into the studies and it's not good, valid research or study.
Yeah, well, I got some studies to flash on the screen, and I'll put links to the studies so other people can look them up and learn about them for themselves. But really what Gundry does, same thing that Ansel Keys does, is cherry pick. In Ansel Keys' case, he did a study, cherry picked the data that he included and ignored all the stuff that was inconvenient. In Gundry's case, he picks a lot of studies which don't actually demonstrate cause, they show possible associations, right? And a lot of this is based on dietary epidemiological studies where they hand out surveys, people ask them what they ate, and they go, oh my God, these people ate hot dogs and then they had heart attacks. But they don't ask them, or they don't include the information about smoking, drinking, being sedentary, and of course, that old sort of war horse we like to trot out, the healthy user bias. So people who are attracted to this idea of eating healthier make other healthier choices in their life, even if being plant-based isn't necessarily healthier than eating steak. If you think it is, you're more likely to go down that path and not be smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, staying out all night, doing blow in the disco and all that other stuff. So yeah, that's a big part of it. And none of that is accounted for in these studies that he quotes.
Along with my former partner, Leonard Bailey, I perform more infant and pediatric heart transplants than any other doctor in the world. I'm the inventor of the Gundry retrograde cardioplegia cannula, one of the most widely used devices to keep the human heart alive during open heart surgery. I was one of the original 20 surgeons who tested the world's first artificial heart and one of the first to use robots in surgery. I've seen thousands of patients with a spectrum of health issues, including cardiovascular disease, cancer, autoimmune conditions, diabetes, and obesity. But you may know me better from my interviews on news channels across America, or my online videos on health and wellness, which have over 50 million views. And according to my colleagues, this protein wake-up call documentary you're watching right now is my most important.
Oh, it's a
It's
documentary.
a
Personal physician, the
documentary.
legendary
It's not
self-help
just to
guru
sell
Tony Robbins,
shakes.
who was kind enough to recently say, Dr. Gundry is one of America's greatest
You
and
big
most
fan
knowledgeable
of
physicians. And for years, I've had the good fortune to benefit
Tony
from
Robbins?
his care. Why
I
do
could take him or leave him.
Fortune 500 executives and thousands of other Americans come to me for help? The answer is simple, because I'm willing to tackle medical issues that nobody else can fix. People come to me when they've been everywhere, Harvard, the Mayo Clinic, Princeton, UCLA, and they still can't find
Every time I
answers.
see a
Because I'm not
smoldering
afraid to try
barbecue with a bunch
solutions
of
that
hot
go
coals in
against the
it,
grain.
I
In fact,
wonder,
in my experience,
would Tony
many
Robbins
health
run
professionals
across
are
this?
often behind the latest research, and in some cases, actually doing more harm than good. And nowhere is this more clear than when it comes to one of the most important parts of your diet, protein. So let's start with the good part. What can
I don't know if you saw it, but in that picture, there was all kinds of meat in there, including sausages and stuff.
protein do for you? In a word, everything. Protein, along with carbs and fat, is one of the three main ways your body gets energy. And when it
That is a good point. I like to remind people that if you're going to get calories, the bulk of your calories are going to come from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and pretty much in that order, right? So a lot of people, are new to this. They don't realize this is the only three sources that we derive calories from. The only caveat being alcohol. If you drink alcohol, you get calories from that too.
comes to benefits, protein is far superior to carbs and fats. Here's why. It helps you manage your weight. While eating carbs makes you hungrier, protein is special because it makes you feel full.
We don't necessarily disagree with that, do we, Justin?
No, not necessarily. There are some finer points, but sure.
The broad strokes, yeah.
Yeah.
Protein tends to be satisfying, satisfies your hunger. And that's one of the reasons why when you're eating a bunch of carbohydrates, you can overeat them so easily, is because you don't feel as satisfied.
And I haven't seen anyone in this video of a beauty level higher than a 6. So she's about a 6. Just throwing that out there.
Actually stops unhealthy food cravings. And
That's just cute. I like watching her eat.
protein ignites thermogenesis, the process of calorie burning in your body. This means protein tells your body to burn.
You don't burn anything. The body does not burn.
Well, and just because you eat protein doesn't mean this firestorm of thermogenesis is going on either, right? I mean, if you're eating carbohydrates and fats, your body's going to preferentially turn those into fuel, right? Which is very efficient. Protein, it's like you lose like 30% of that protein gets used up in the conversion process before it even becomes energy. And so your body tends to utilize the protein to rebuild itself first, right? So you need protein, your digestive tract breaks down the protein and amino acids that go into the bloodstream, and then the body uses them for all kinds of things long before it gets around to fuel. And if you're eating fat or carbohydrates as well, your body's going to utilize those as fuel first and may convert very little protein into energy, or maybe, I don't think the number is 0, but a very small amount, right?
Right. If you're eating a bunch of carbohydrates and fats, yeah, then you're not gonna, your body's gonna use that before ever getting to the protein.
In fact, I've discovered that one simple trick involving protein, which I'll show you in just a moment, is actually the #1 key to losing weight and keeping it off. This is so important, not just for our appearance, although let's face it, that is important, but also for your health. Staying in shape is the key to a longer life and having confidence as you age. And you can attain that amazing feeling at any age with this one simple protein hack. But the benefits of protein don't end there. Protein is also vital to stronger bones.
I don't disagree with that.
No.
I
The
think
cellular matrix.
there you go. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that our bones are largely made out of protein. At least the solid structure is. So
Multiple human clinical studies have shown that protein works with calcium to give you denser, stronger bones, which is really important, especially for people over 40. It's great for muscle health too. You don't have to be an athlete to want a stronger,
don't disagree with that.
healthier body. As we age, we all need extra muscle support. And protein not only builds muscle, it actually reduces aches and even helps boost recovery time.
I don't disagree with that either, right? when you eat plenty of protein, you tend to have fewer aches and pains, and it does indeed help build your muscles up, right?
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just distracted by the cartoons, and I thought it was weird that he made a cartoon of him and his wife question mark rather than him and his wife dancing. Just it's hard to take him seriously. That's all. Very
Sounds
distracting.
great, right? But before you go out and eat a thick protein-rich steak, there's something you should know. Health warning. The wrong protein can actually cause serious health problems. And the main culprit for bad protein is something I've been warning people about for years: red meat. And the good news is getting healthier does not involve giving up any type of meat, even red meat. There's a simple secret.
It's kind of where we start parting ways, isn't it?
A bit.
I wonder if you went to, Africa, and you told the Maasai that eating meat, and then he throws dairy or milk in with the meat in here. You'll notice he mixes the two together, and it comes down to the IGF-1 content, or it raising IGF-1 levels in human beings. If he's telling him all these horrible things they're going to do, and he's standing there looking at a guy like a Maasai cattle herder or something, that guy probably drinks 8 or 9 liters of raw milk a day, drinks cow blood, eats goats whole, and lots of beef and almost nothing else. And he's telling him, oh man, you're going to get heart attacks and cancer. And those guys know, as long as they stick to that way of life, that doesn't happen. I wonder what he's going to say, and we'll talk more about the IGF-1 when we get to it.
Let you eat all your favorite proteins and still be healthier, leaner, and live longer. And when you hear it, you're going to be shocked at how simple it is. But to understand it, you first need to understand why red meat is correlated with so many health issues. You see, Harvard University, one of the top research facilities.
Notice he said correlated.
Right. Correlation is not causation. Statistics 101.
In the world recently announced that overconsumption of red.
Oh yeah, and I like to point out that Harvard, even though we think of Harvard University as this colossus of a school, it's actually made up of smaller schools. And the data that's published by the various schools in Harvard are often in conflict. And here he's cherry-picked data. He's attributed to Harvard as a whole and not to the individual schools within Harvard. Same thing. Anybody who follows science realizes sooner or later that organizations like NASA sound schizophrenic because different departments report conflicting information, right? So it's only the alarming stuff that anybody actually perpetuates. So then we get into publication bias, because the information is of the alarming stuff is produced or reproduced at a much higher rate.
Red meat.
And there's a frightening I just want to touch on correlation. There's a frightening correlation between ice cream sales and shark attacks.
Yes, there is. Well, there's another one, right? The classic one is there's a shocking correlation between people dying and eating carrots. It seems as though everybody who eats carrots dies. So,
and even cancer. In one massive study of 120,000 men and women, the risk of dying from heart disease went up by 13% for every 3 ounces of red meat people ate daily. And this will.
How is it that we're still alive?
Right. There's so many issues with that statistic he just threw out.
And again, this is a study in which it didn't cite, so I don't know, but it probably falls under the usual collection of nutritional epidemiologic studies where they just hand out surveys and ask people what they ate for the last 20 years.
Right. And it's really tricky, right? Because we lay people, oftentimes when we hear study, we think research, and research and studies are actually not the same thing.
Good point.
Shock you. Remember when I asked you which of these foods increased your risk of heart disease? If you answered the hot dog, you were right. Eating just one hot dog daily increases your risk of death from heart disease by 20%. And even if.
And again, I'd like to point out that they always show these hot dogs, they're putting ketchup on it and it's in a bun. And how do we know that the ketchup and the bun have no effect, right?
You don't eat hot dogs. Any processed meat is terrible for your body. That includes cold cuts like processed ham, pastrami, and roast beef. And the more you eat, the worse it is for your health. For instance,
And they're lumping all processed meat together. So I ask all the time, is ground beef processed? Of course it is. Is ground beef worse for you than steak or pot roast? I don't know. Where is it the ingredients? And a lot of people go down the road of nitrates, which I think they're actually trying to talk about nitrosamines, so if they were so dangerous, then celery would kill us, because those nitrates that they get to preserve the meat is made from the breakdown of celery, and it's exactly the same process that goes through and digest it. Now, aside from brushing your colon with celery, which we know is dangerous, I don't think eating it is. So I don't know why they're always banging on about processed meat, because they never really get to the gist of it. And I've told this story before. I had two relatives on two different sides of the family that lived to be well over 100 years old, and they both ate bacon every day. But they not just one or two strips, but something on the order of like a quarter pound of bacon every day. So
if you eat 2 strips of processed bacon as well, your risk goes up by an additional 20%. In one study at Harvard, people who increased their red meat consumption by just 3.5 servings a week were 50% more likely to develop diabetes over the next 4 years.
And they never explain that. How could there possibly be a connection between diabetes and meat? Some people claim it's the fat. The fat winds up in the cells, and that contributes to diabetes. But, like the work that Ben Bickman did, they show that fat that accumulates in the cells that's associated with insulin resistance is actually not dietary fat, but a special type of fat that the body creates in reaction to the insulin resistance. So, other than that, I don't know of any other explanation as to why meat would cause diabetes, right? This meat generally doesn't raise your blood sugar. It doesn't necessarily, it doesn't spike your insulin. It does raise it. Every time you eat,
Right.
insulin goes up a little bit, right?
Now, you may be wondering, how can meat be so bad? Didn't our ancestors eat meat every day? And can I
At least he admits our ancestors ate meat every day.
still eat meat and live a long life? Well,
Of course, these girls are all eating hamburgers with buns and at least cheese. We can assume there's ketchup and stuff in
Mayonnaise.
there, right? Mayonnaise. Yeah.
Secret sauce from In-N-Out.
fortunately, the answer to the last question is yes, you can still eat meat as long as you know what meats are good for you and which are bad. But speaking of your ancestors, let me tell you a fact that will change the way you look at food. The meat your ancestors ate was mostly healthy, while the animal protein we eat
I wonder how he knows that. Mostly healthy.
today is
I guess because it's not processed.
a big reason comes down to the way animals are raised today, and a secret that the food industry has been trying to hide for years. To understand this, let me pose you a simple question. If a corporation that owns a giant cattle farm wants to make more money, should they A, make the cows extra healthy so they live a long time, or B, make the cows grow abnormally fast, even if it was terrible for their health? If you guessed option B, you're exactly right. When I was a kid growing up in Omaha, Nebraska,
I like how he just makes it sound like every cow that we eat is raised the same way, right? There's no regenerative animal agriculture. There's no strictly grass-fed beef, none of that. It's all factory farming. They're shot up with chemicals and hormones and antibiotics, and that's all it is. And that's what's wrong with everybody.
many cattle farms were still good family-owned businesses that cared about the health of their customers and their animals. But today, virtually every piece of meat you
Doesn't have anything to do with dietary recommendations, does it?
find in a grocery store comes from a massive corporate-owned cattle farm who really only care about squeezing every penny they can out of you, me, and their cattle. They want cows that grow fat.
Hey, Justin, what are those cows eating?
Grains, dirt. I don't know what the hell they're eating. Honestly, I can't tell.
That's some kind of grass.
grass.
I'm looking at the image blown up. It's like alfalfa or grass or something. Well, I mean, alfalfa is really just a kind of grass, but
Fast and grow big so they can get the most beef they can in the quickest amount of time. And when it comes to dairy cows, they want cows that produce as much milk as possible every day, even if it means pushing the cow's biology beyond what nature intended. And they do this with one magical ingredient known as insulin-like growth factor, or
that's kind of a lie right there, right? Because I mean, the reason why how they get cows, the main reason they get cows to produce so much milk is they keep them pregnant, right?
Right.
Keep them going through pregnancy cycles. So
IGF-1. IGF is found in all kinds of animal protein. But here's the shocking truth the food industry does not want you to know. If you're between the ages of 45 and 65, the more IGF there is in your body over time, the more likely you are to die. I'm going to show you proof of this in just a moment, and it's going to change the way you eat. I guarantee it. But first, let's understand what IGF is and what it does to your body. IGF is a hormone your body makes naturally, mostly in your liver. It has an anabolic effect, meaning it builds things in your body. IGF is actually vital to your growth when you're young. Remember that growth spurt you experienced when you were going through puberty? That was thanks to IGF-1. And if a child's IGF levels are low, it can actually cause growth problems and even dwarfism. But here's the thing about IGF. As adults, we do not need as much IGF. After all, we're not growing anymore.
ironically, we need more protein, but we don't need as much IGF. And the other ironic thing is here, IGF is insulin-like growth factor, right? And he never talks about insulin, right? He's talking about a substance that's a lot like insulin. That's why it's called insulin-like, but he doesn't talk about insulin.
Like when we were kids. And it turns out having too much IGF as an adult is actually terrible for your body. There have been many studies that confirm this, but let me tell you about a landmark study that sent shockwaves through the medical community. In 2014,
This is one of the studies I pulled up. I don't know, a lot of people can't probably read it, but at the bottom it says www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov, PMC article number PMC 3988204. I'll put a link in the show notes, and I'll probably put the abstract in there with it, the title. And if you remember what he says about the study here, and then you actually look at the study, you realize that he's parsing what the study says a little bit in his own favor. So again, I found it slightly dishonest. It seemed more like cherry picking. And then I also looked at a bunch of other studies that talk about IGF-1. I've got some of them in my notes here we could share on the screen if we got time. Otherwise, they'll be in the show notes as well.
largest studies ever conducted on IGF-1 was published by 15 researchers, several of which are world famous. These researchers were from some of the most prestigious universities in the world,
Build
including
authority.
UCLA, USC, Washington University Medical School, and others. Amazingly, the study included over 6,300 men and women for 18 straight years, starting at ages 50 through 65, with the oldest respondents eventually reaching age 83. And they
Respondents, meaning surveys, am I right?
Yeah. And then the interesting thing is 50 through 65. And that's the time in your life when you have to start eating more protein, especially when you get to 65. And so he's talking about, oh, don't eat red meat. So really what he wants to do is get all the retirees to drink his chocolate shakes instead of eating real food, because he's going to scare them into thinking their IGF-1 is going to go through the ceiling and kill them.
who lived the longest and who died the soonest. The results were, in a word, shocking. Of the 6,381 respondents, those with the highest protein intake had a 75% increase in their chance of early death and were 4 times more likely to die from cancer or diabetes. I'll say that again. The people who ate the most protein were 4 times more likely to die from cancer or diabetes. And amongst people who had no diabetes when the study began, those that ate a high protein diet were 7.
And notice he doesn't say the people who ate the most red meat. He says the
Right, he's saying
ate the
protein.
protein.
Right.
Could have
It's
been
kind of mixing things up here.
could have been eating peanut butter for all we know, right?
Right.
3 times more likely to develop diabetes. When asked what the connection between animal protein and death was, the researchers pointed at one thing in particular, IGF-1. You see, animal protein is
So they found one factor that these studies had in common. And like you said, these are people, respondents, these are people filling out forms and sending them in, right? It's not like their food was measured. We don't know if they're telling the truth. They weren't locked in a ward or anything like that.
They didn't
So-
even take blood samples of IGF-1, it looks like.
Right. So,
Like levels
right.
throughout the.
If you're really worried your IGF-1 is too high, I think you could get a lab done.
proven
Right.
to increase IGF-1 levels in the human body. In fact, if you're between the ages of 50 and 65, even a microscopic amount of IGF can increase.
So I do want to ask a question because I honestly don't know a lot about IGF-1. Are there other things like smoking or drinking? Like, is there other ways that it could be increased besides dietary related?
I don't know the answer to that. That's something we can look into. I would imagine that there is definitely more than one way to affect IGF levels, right? But I don't know what they are.
9% compared to the low protein group. But IGF-1 wasn't just correlated with cancer. It was also correlated with cancer tumors that were bigger. When the researchers studied mice who had
Studied mice. This is
Now
what-
we jump from red meat to protein, back to meat, back to protein, back to mice now. It's a lot to untangle. And stating what did he just say? Man, damn it, you can't roll it back, of course. But it was something about him being, well, again, the protein, but the crap, I think I lost it. There was something there. And I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, see, he's jumping through all these hoops, right?
Right.
Now he's talking about a mouse study. And mice don't eat near as much protein as humans. Like, so like if you left,
Oh, I just remembered it. So they're not defining what a serving is,
right?
right?
we don't
Of
know
protein. I mean,
what-
we guess it's three ounces. That's usually what is a serving of protein, I guess. But when you're having all these respondents guess, defining how much protein is in a serving,
right.
and then extrapolating from that, but a serving is kind of subjective, right? I consider a serving of protein a ribeye steak. That to me, that's a serving of protein.
Yeah, we don't know what he means by high protein, right? It's not
Right.
defined. And that's a thing. It's like when you look at studies and say high protein or high fat or high carbohydrate, and you look at some of the values and you're like, wow, that doesn't really strike me as high or low or whatever, So it's kind of all it's the language is rather arbitrary, right? And if you have a wild mouse and you let it eat whatever food it wants, it's not going to eat a high protein diet, So you turn around and then the mice that they bred for laboratory experiments are bred to develop cancer and tumors easily and faster. And then you add to that, they have longer telomeres. So a lot of times these mice, even though they can develop cancer or something faster and easier, they're actually more resistant to things that damage their DNA, right? And so you get all these skewed results. And then you're feeding them, they don't tell us what kind of protein they fed these mice. They might be feeding them,
Well, I mean, they often use
High protein.
synthetics.
right?
Very, very rarely do these poor animals, where's PETA, right? About the experimental mice. Anyway.
Should be
they're
illegal to
usually-
feed mice things they wouldn't normally eat.
Oftentimes it's synthetics or injections and things like that, and it's not food.
cancer tumors. The mice with high protein intake had tumors that were 78% bigger than the low protein mice after just 39 days. Unsurprisingly, the high protein mice with gigantic tumors also had 35% higher levels of, you guessed it,
So they're talking about what they did to mice in a little over a month. And then they're comparing it to studies based on handouts that people turned out that's supposed to describe what they ate for decades.
Yeah. I don't know how to jump that canyon. I don't think even Evil Knievel could do it.
Not even Knievel with 2 rockets would do that.
That's how the researchers summarize their results. Our study indicates that high levels of animal proteins promoting increases in IGF-1 and possibly insulin and aging may be the major promoter of mortality for people age 45 to 65 in the 18 years following the survey assessing protein intake. When these results were published 4 years ago, many in the medical community were shocked, but I must say I was not. Why? Because I
he's
had been
smarter
warning
than
people
everyone else.
about the dangers of IGF-1 for years. How long have the dangers been known? Well, this might make you angry. After studying 32,000 people in a major Harvard study, the Harvard Gazette reported that high levels of IGF-1 significantly increase the risk of colorectal, breast, and prostate cancer. Do you know what year this was published? It was 1999, almost 20 years ago. Why have these results been known for almost 2 decades and nobody has done anything about it? The answer is going to shock you.
I mean, just like you said, we don't know what other factors can raise IGF levels. We don't know if the IGF levels are increasing because the person is sick or if the IGF levels are causing the disease, right?
And we're not even getting a millimeter or molecule level or of IGF-1. What he doesn't even state what the baseline should be in an adult, say 60 or 54 years old or 18 or whatever. We have no idea.
He's trying to suggest that these animals have high levels of IGF-1. We're eating them and it's raising our levels of IGF-1. So where's the study that shows that, right?
Right. And, a lot of these hormones like testosterone, they have a really hard time honing in on even something like testosterone, what are averages, what's high, what's low, associations and things like that. We know that there's certain characteristics of, say, sperm count, things like that can be associated with what's known as a low testosterone level. But it's, all this stuff about raise your testosterone and all this stuff. There is no actual, there might be like a small range, but there's no optimal for every male level of testosterone.
Yeah, I mean, levels of that stuff are going up and down all
Right.
the time, right? Most hormones are kind of pulsatile, or definitely insulin is, right? Your body's releasing pulses of insulin, and then it goes to the body, does the signaling it should do, and then your levels drop off until next time when those signals need to be sent out again.
And holding a baby or a small child will actually lower your testosterone levels if you're a male. It's kind of interesting. So it's like, how good of an indicator. So if you had a hot,
trying to grow muscles,
had a hot night with your lady, and then kissed your kid goodnight, or in the morning, or made them breakfast, and then went to the doctor to have your testosterone levels lower, checked, they would be lower than average because of those activities.
Interesting. Oh,
It comes down to cattle farms and money. You see, since 1994, growth hormones have been given to millions of cows in America. According to one study, bovine somatotropin, or bovine growth hormone, has been given to about 30% of dairy cows in America, and a staggering 90% of beef cows. The reason makes perfect sense financially. Growth hormones have been shown to make beef cows bigger and heavier, and they get that way faster, so they can be brought to slaughter more quickly, and more money can be made by cattle producers. And in dairy cows, growth hormones trick cows into skipping the so-called dry period of their milk cycle, meaning that they can pump milk every day, resulting in about 10 to 40% more milk production.
And, like I was saying, just because you gave the cow, let's assume, and I suspect that 90% is not an accurate level, right? It was like, 90% of beef cattle have been given the growth hormone. So just because you gave that, once you give that cow that growth hormone, it starts growing, are you going to give it some more before it goes to the feedlot to be fattened up? Probably not, right? I mean, because at that point, the cow's fully grown and all you're doing is putting some fat on it, some weight on it, right? So those hormone levels are going to drop off, right? So again, we don't know that there is a connection between IGF-1 levels in the cow and IGF-1 levels in the person. Like you said, maybe there's other reasons why our IGF levels are higher than would be expected.
Is more milk good for dairy farmer profits? Sure. Is it good for cows who are not meant to lactate every day of their lives and often develop infections in the udders as a result? No way. And is it good for you when you drink milk that may be either tainted?
Now, here's the thing. He's talking about milk tainted with pus from infected udders. That's stuff that is controlled very carefully, right? So if you've got a cow with what do they call it? Itis, udderitis. I can't remember what it's called. So anyways, they're not allowed to use that milk, and they go through and they sanitize the teats before they go into the milking machine. And is it statitis? I forgot what it's called. But anyways, if the cows have infected udders, they're not allowed to use that milk. That milk's disposed of. It's not mixed with the other milk. You know, all this stuff is very carefully regulated. The milk is sampled and tested at laboratories to make sure it's not infected with things like this. And it makes it sound like nobody cares, and this just, you know, there's just pussy udders squirting into
And,
the milk
you
machine.
know, most families for years had their own dairy cow, and they were just drinking it straight from their own dairy cow without a bunch of processing. And like you've talked before, Tom, dairy or beef cows are under strict dietary requirements. There's so many regulations and
Yep.
everything for the food for the cattle. I mean, it's almost over-regulated. And you got scientists that, you know, over decades have kind of perfected raising cows, making sure they're healthy, making sure it's good meat that's consumption. Because at the end of the day, people aren't going to eat bad meat. You know, if it's all sour, gross, or has a weird taste, or people are really finicky. I mean, you ever watch people shop for meat at the store? They pick up 5, 6, 7, 8 different packages of meat before they, you know, they're looking at color and they're looking at trying to smell it or look at it up in the light. Like people are doing all these crazy, you know, they got dowsing rods there looking for the best cut of meat and for the best poundage and price. People take this stuff seriously, you know, and so for
I
it
saw
to
a
say
chick
that
the other
there's
day, she had crystals on a chain and she was like scrying over the meat or something.
right, exactly. And so there, it is business. It's not this you know, he's got a little bit of this, it's an evil, you know, the big bad corporation, corporate meat is doing nothing but making money, doesn't care about the health of their companies and things like that. I mean, it's almost equated to the tobacco industry.
Well,
you
and
know?
this whole documentary, as he called it, is really a commercial to sell his chocolate shakes, which are made out of spirulina and flaxseed. And how do we know? How do we know what went into that flaxseed and that spirulina to get it to grow, right? Or maybe that's where the horses come in. Maybe it's fed with horse shit. I don't know.
With infected pus? Or just as bad, pumped full of antibiotics to kill infections? Absolutely not. And whether or not you drink cow's milk, multiple studies have shown that all red meat consumption increases levels of IGF-1 in the human body. By the way, you might be wondering, haven't I heard of people using growth hormones somewhere else? Yes, you may have heard of one specific group of people who use growth hormone.
And again, they don't just use growth hormone. A lot of them use insulin. You know, they are, in my opinion, I think they abuse insulin because you need insulin to grow muscles. I'm not sure how he extrapolates that to IGF-1, but
Hormones. Bodybuilders. Several decades ago, some bodybuilders realized that they, like cows, could experience quicker muscle building and weight gain by artificially dosing themselves with IGF-1. And actually, if all you care about is muscle, it can have some short-term benefits. There's just one problem. According to Baylor professor Dr. Daniel Gwartney, who studied 1,578 bodybuilders, bodybuilders are 34% more likely to die than non-bodybuilders at the exact same age. Okay, so let's walk through everything.
Well, bodybuilders don't do a lot of things like the average person, so it's completely mute. They do cutting and calorie restriction and feasting and up at 4
dirty
a.m.
bulking.
Dirty, right? Do you know?
Yeah. Plus all the tanning and all the other crazy stuff we see these guys do. And I'm not saying nobody uses IGF-1. I've never heard of a bodybuilder using IGF-1. I don't think it's that popular. You don't have to spend too long talking to anybody, or I mean, I get ads on Instagram for all these chemicals that they use, the testosterone type stuff, the anabolic steroids and human growth hormone and stuff like that. But the IGF-1, I don't think it's that common. So he talks about a study with bodybuilders, and of course they're very extreme individuals that go to very extreme measures to have unnaturally muscular bodies, right?
And it could have been something that was more popular in the past, but they always find a new chemical, something new, or something gets banned. So they're always pushing the envelope. And he didn't say when this research was done or anything. So
yeah,
may have been popular then, but what are people doing now?
Some bodybuilders used IGF-1. Bodybuilders are more likely to die.
Correlation.
Barely.
Hormone that some bodybuilders take to rapidly increase muscle mass. Hormones believed to contribute to sudden heart attacks and liver failure. This same hormone that likely is found in every ounce of red meat you've ever eaten. Meat that comes from cows pumped full of bovine growth hormone to make them grow faster to make corporations.
Yes. I think that's a blatant lie right there. He just said that the beef is all pumped. What did he say? Pumped full of growth hormone to make them as big as possible. That's just not true.
More money, and those cows pumped full of poison end up as beef products.
Oh, now it's poison.
Now it's poison.
It's on your kitchen table. And this hormone ends up inside of you, building up in your body every single day, like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. This is the secret reason why red meat is so dangerous. This is a modern problem caused by those money-hungry corporations pumping our cattle full of things to make them artificially bigger and less healthy than they ever were meant to be. Okay, now on to the good news. While consuming too much red meat can lead to weight gain, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, fortunately, the inverse is also true. If you can simply reduce your red meat intake, even just a little, research shows you can experience dramatic weight loss, as well as a reduction in your risk of diabetes.
Yeah, they're saying they're correlate. What they're doing here is they're saying, oh, you're going to lose body weight, presumably body fat. And then from that,
yeah, I mean, that lady wasn't grabbing a bicep.
Heart disease and many types of cancer.
So they're saying because you lost weight, you're lowering the risk of these other things, which, there is a link between obesity and heart disease and cancer and high blood pressure and kidney disease. There's no doubt about that. But they're not directly saying that those things are affected by red meat. They're just saying you lose weight and those risks go down.
Notice I didn't say eliminate completely. I actually just said reduce. Yes, it is not necessary to give up red meat to be healthy, because while red meat can be dangerous.
Again, he sells a bunch of random sausages with nasty onions and bell peppers. How do we know those onions and bell peppers aren't the real problem? Because we've been eating the meat for millions of years, but the onions and the bell peppers, that's new stuff. And they're not those bell peppers are nightshades, by the way. Shouldn't definitely not be eating those.
When consumed at high levels. At low or moderate levels, animal protein can absolutely be part of a healthy diet. In fact, in a 2014 study published by the Harvard School of Public Health, researchers discovered that just reduced.
Notice there, he finally said Harvard School for Public Health, right? He finally acknowledged that Harvard's broken up into different schools.
Seeing the amount of red meat you eat by 3.5 servings per week resulted in a powerful 14% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes.
So, and again, we don't know how they derive that risk. And it's probably a misinterpretation. And it probably isn't actually risk that they're reducing.
So if you want to live long, lose weight, and feel healthier, the Harvard researchers made it crystal clear. Choosing more healthy sources of protein in place of red meat can confer significant health benefits by reducing chronic disease morbidity and mortality. Dr. Frank Hugh, professor, Harvard Medical School. So, step one of my protein hack for lower weight and better health is simple. Protein hack step 1, eat 4 fewer servings of red meat a week. If you think about it, this is actually not too hard. After all, if you eat 3 meals a day, that's 21 meals a week. You just need to pick 4 of those meals that normally have red meat and eat something else. And believe me, there is a way to get plenty of protein and still eat the foods you love. as you're about to see. What are some better proteins to eat? Well, there are some great choices, but before I get to them, I must point out something that so many of my patients don't know. Switching to chicken is not the answer. Like I said, I do eat chicken, but if you simply swap chicken breast for red meat, not only will you not improve your health, you may actually make it worse. Firstly, store-bought chicken is usually pumped full of antibiotics. In fact, one chicken breast may contain almost as many estrogenic substances as an entire birth control pill.
Doesn't mention the soybean products here, the tofu, which are even higher.
By the way, chicken may contain antibiotics even if it's labeled organic and free range. Here's something that you may be surprised by. If there's 100,000 chickens on an organic free range farm, one of the chickens,
I think even egg yolks are higher in estrogen.
gets sick, the veterinarian is allowed to dose the entire flock with antibiotics, and it's still considered organic. And who do you think the vet works for? The chickens? For you? No, he works for the billion-dollar poultry company. And again, they're
I'm not sure if there's $1 billion poultry company.
And pork is just as bad as chicken. The other white meat is actually loaded with IGF-1, just like beef is. So what are the healthiest animal proteins to eat? Two of the better sources of animal protein are actually wild fresh fish and shellfish, such as Alaskan salmon and wild-caught shrimp. Fish are packed with omega-3s, which are really good for your health. I like my fish baked or grilled. Some people even have fish in tacos, like this one I showed you earlier. And would you guess that this fish taco could also help your vision? In fact, in one famous British study, researchers found people who ate fish just once per week cut their risk of macular degeneration in half. If you ask me, that's a great reason to get at least one serving of fresh fish per week. And while I do recommend fish as a healthier option than processed meat like hot dogs, bacon, and cold cuts, it has drawbacks. As you probably know, eating only fresh fish every day is both time-consuming and expensive. And this is still animal protein. Like red meat, fish is also associated with elevated.
Everything has elevated levels of IGF-1, except his chocolate shakes.
IGF-1 levels. And according to the FDA, virtually all fish contains at least small amounts of mercury, which can lead to a whole range of health problems. So fish, while good, is still not the ideal protein. Fortunately, there's some great news here, because one of the best sources for protein on Earth doesn't even come from animals. It's actually from plants. A lot of people find it hard to believe that
A lot of people should find it hard to believe that we did not evolve to eat plant protein.
plants can provide enough protein for humans. In fact, I've heard more than a few people say something like this: you need to eat meat to build muscle. Well, tell that to a
No, he didn't go there.
He went
Didn't.
there.
He doesn't.
He went there. He went to an animal that has to munch on leaves and twigs 80% of its time.
silverback gorilla, which has enough muscle to rip the door off a Chevy, but eats
Chevy, but not a Ford.
almost
Ah.
nothing but leaves and shoots all day. Or a thoroughbred racehorse, strapping with muscles, one of the fastest physical specimens in the animal world.
That's right, because they have to run away from carnivores.
Which forage on almost nothing but grass and water every day.
Like cows.
You might think, shh,
So are we supposed to eat the gorillas or the horses?
I guess the horses.
sure, that works for gorillas and horses, but humans need meat to survive, don't they? Like I
Yes.
said, I do love animal
To
meat,
thrive.
but no, we don't need it at all. Just ask Samantha Shorkey, a vegan Canadian nutrition expert. She looks like she's doing okay without meat to me. Or take a look at Nimai Delgado, a world famous vegetarian pro athlete. In fact,
We should look
Nimai
them
has
up and
never
see where
eaten
they are
animal meat
today.
in his entire life. So can plants give you tons of protein? That may be an understatement, but the best reason to eat plant proteins may actually be for your overall health. Remember the UCLA study that said a high protein diet was associated with 4 times greater likelihood of death? Here's the one shocking thing they added after looking at all the data. These associations were either abolished or attenuated if the source of proteins was plant-based. Yes, you read that right. Plant protein is immune from the dangers of animal protein. That means all the health risks described in
Plant proteins are also don't provide amino acids in the correct ratios. And there's also things like carnosine and carnitine and stuff like that that do not exist in the plant world. So you cannot get all your nutrients from plants.
the study all the terrible health warnings I gave you They all disappear if your protein source comes from plants instead of animals. This is where my second protein hack comes in. Protein hack step number 2. To lose weight and get healthier, simply swap 4 red meat servings a week with plant protein instead. I cannot tell you how big a difference this can make in your life. Again, you may currently be eating 10, 15, even 20 or more servings of red meat a week. And all you need to do is swap out 4 of them for good, healthy plant protein. And you can experience all.
I like how he just decides for us that plant protein is healthy, or he's the flip side is suggesting some plant protein is healthy and some isn't.
All of the following: skinnier waistline, plant protein is associated with weight loss; improved heart health, plant proteins don't contain IGF-1; fewer cravings.
Did he ever explain how IGF-1 affects the heart?
No, not at all.
On as much plant protein as you want without the health risks. And most importantly, sleep easy, knowing you may actually live longer, because plant proteins not only don't incur the warning that animal proteins.
Why don't vegans live longer? Why don't vegetarians
Right.
live longer? Why don't doctors live longer? For some reason, they all die of heart disease at the same rate. Why is that?
It's a complete
actually
mystery.
improve health. So you add years to your life. So plant protein is, in my opinion, the
Can he
ideal
make that
protein
claim?
to swap a few times a week for red meat. However, there is one health warning I must give you. Certain plants high in protein, such as quinoa, soy, buckwheat, peanut butter, and beans, are
Here-
all packed with what I call one of the most dangerous things
agree.
you can put in your body.
Yeah.
They're called lectins. If you've ever seen my videos before, you know about lectins already.
Yeah, lectins are plant proteins that aren't good for you. As tasty as peanut butter could be, it's full of lectins. You shouldn't eat it. You know, as much as we all liked, fresh baked bread, shouldn't eat it. It's full of what's that lectin in wheat? Everybody's
The gluten
Gluten,
protein.
yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Lectins are tiny little proteins found in certain kinds of plants that are not supposed to be in your body. One famous type of lectin you may have heard of is gluten, but that's just one type. There's actually many found
All
in
I had to
various
do was
plants.
wait a minute.
Some common foods containing lectins are whole grain wheat, eggplants, and tomatoes. Many people have been told these are health foods, but in my opinion, they are anything but.
We can agree on that, right?
Right.
And what about that super freakish study they did where they tagged I think it was peanut lectins, wasn't it? With fluorescent
Oh, and it goes up into the vagus nerve and into the brain.
travels the vagus nerve up to the brain and winds up on was it the amygdala?
Yeah, I think so.
Was causing Parkinson's like disease.
Yeah, yeah.
Super freaky. Don't eat lectins.
Because your ancestors didn't eat any of these so-called health foods. You see,
Well, did we eat spirulina and flaxseed? That's what it's selling.
tomatoes and eggplants weren't introduced
I'm just
to Western
saying.
civilization until 1492, when Christopher Columbus discovered them in the New World and brought them back to Europe. Of course, he had no idea they were packed with lectins or the impact they could have on human GI tracts, which had never been exposed to these foreign foods before. In the case of whole grain wheat, humans have been eating it a while longer, since farming began about 10,000 years ago. But even then, most society.
Yeah, and it was only small percentage of the population that had access to it in the beginning. Just because somebody started farming it in the Levant in some tiny little area doesn't mean hardly anybody was eating it.
Societies historically removed the dark wheat husk and instead ate white bread, which is not a coincidence, because it's in the dark husk that gut-destroying lectins are contained. However, since
I've had $1 for every loaf of multi-grain bread that had a bunch of freaking holes in it. that I ate.
1950, the use of whole wheat health foods have skyrocketed in our society, as well as other lectin-rich foods. Do you know what else has happened since 1950? The obesity rate has more than tripled. The diabetes rate.
Seed oils.
Didn't it really take off though with in about 1980 with the food pyramid?
Right.
I'm just saying.
Skyrocketed 800%. An astounding 70% of Americans are now considered overweight or obese.
Well, what side do you fall on? Do you think it's the vegetable oils that are worse or the carbohydrates? Which one do you think does the most damage?
Ooh, all right. I think it's the seed oils, honestly, and a lot of the carbohydrates are in the seed oil. So it's really hard if people are eating fresh baked bread every once in a while. I don't think that's the huge thing to wait and stuff like that. I think it's the seed oils building up, the polyunsaturated, fats and things like that. Yeah, because there's a bigger correlation. I understand we've been pooping on correlation this whole time, but you have the introduction of carbohydrates long before, and people being able to stay relatively thin, and then the introduction of the seed oils, and the obesity does skyrocket, and it's really hard to.
Yeah, the only thing I could say is that, like, by that time, by let's say 1900 or so is when the price of sugar started coming down, right? And then seed oils and stuff start becoming more available, right? So it's kind of hard to parse it out, right? Because heart attacks were unheard of before 1900. Like it wasn't even part of the language, right?
Right. Yeah. No, it's definitely both at the same time, and both should not be indulged in, for sure. But I think it's definitely the combination. I just think even if they got rid of, even people with plant-based still eating soy oils or plant oils still have a lot of so like Oreos, right? Tons of mixed together plant oils and things like that.
And sugar.
If in sugar, right? Well, yeah. I mean, it's high fructose corn syrup though, which I kind of consider to be a plant oil. Not even real sugar in Oreos, I don't think.
But it's still primarily a carbohydrate in nature, right?
Right, but I feel like the nuance there is the manufacturing. It's, the plant oils are super bad because there's no way that you can take those plants and turn them into oils that they are in nature without the high pressure, high temperature. So the same with high fructose corn syrup. You could eat some corn and stuff like that, and yeah, it's sweet, and yeah, it's a grain and all that, and it may cause some issue, but you can't. There is no high. It's not going to turn into high fructose corn syrup.
Right. Well, I think we've kind of explored enough of this video. What do you say?
Yeah, I think this is a good place to stop. Maybe we can remember this and somehow continued from here. We haven't actually seen the shake yet, and he has a couple of more hacks. But I think the bottom line is this video is an advertisement. He calls it a documentary, but there's so many errors in it, misconstruing, and it's that thing where the plot's moving so fast that you can't keep up with everything. That's done on purpose. Now, I don't know. I mean, Dr. Gundry, is he an honest actor, or is he trying to sell something? Does he live and breathe what he believes? I think he does. I think he believes what he's selling. But he has a more interest in selling his product, or in, he was in Loma Linda University, so he must have been indoctrinated with a lot of that plant-based stuff and things like that. Now, good for him for pushing back on it some and recognizing plant toxins and all that. That's really cool. But he's not willing to, he's been in debates with other people in the keto community and carnivore community, bringing up different studies toe for toe, and yet he still refuses to adjust his position according to better or newer research, right? And so, to me, that kind of makes him more of a swindler, not really interested in what's actually best for people, but interested in dogma and this hyper focus of weight loss. And yeah, there is associated with the cancer, the big stuff, but nowhere is he talking about arthritis, migraines, psoriasis, mental health issues, myriad of different things that we see in the keto and carnivore community. Sure. Get better. Right. Weight loss, like I said in the beginning, weight loss is easy. We know how to put on weight, lose weight. That's easy. Being healthy and doing it, and being free of chronic disease, especially, to me, is next level. that is true health.
Yeah, and I think he kind of trying to dodge a bullet here by saying you don't have to give up meat because, as we know, like 85% of everybody who goes plant-based gives it up in the first 5 years, and the primary reason cited is catastrophic health problems, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So, anyways, I'm going to paste all the stuff I looked up in the show notes. I'd like to encourage everybody to go to places like PubMed and look at these studies. You can look up all kinds of stuff. There are studies that are behind paywalls that are hard to get to, but there's an almost inexhaustible amount of studies that aren't. So there's a lot to read, And when a guy like Gundry, quotes a couple of studies here and there, and he's not going through study after study that are on exactly the same subject, he's clearly cherry picking. So I pulled up some other IGF-1 related studies. I'm going to paste the links and the abstracts in the show notes so you guys can look at them. And I encourage you to go to, places where studies are listed. PubMed is just the portal to the National Institutes of Health sort of warehouse of studies. So anybody can go there. It's free. And you can look up stuff. And, like he's talking about modern meat versus human meat. Or modern meat versus, what our ancestors ate. One time I sat down and looked up, there's a bunch of studies on the nutritional content of mammoth meat. So obviously mammoths weren't farmed. They weren't given hormones and antibiotics. And you can go through and compare, mammoth meat to modern cattle meat if you want to, right?
And I do want to throw in there, we're not big on industrial cattle raising and all that. We know that some of it, there are, you can't watch everything. We know that there's some practices that may not be the best and things like that. But there's no research as far as nutritionally that truly demonstrates that grass-fed or an organic cow or raw dairy milk is technically better for us. There might be some different microorganisms, especially in raw dairy and things like that, but there's no definitive research out there.
We'd like to think that a cow that was just raised on grass, like we think nature was intended, it would be healthier for us than one that was grain finished, but we don't have the data yet that points that. And I would assume that's true, but the few studies that they have don't demonstrate that. In fact, the people that ate the grain finished beef were actually healthier, but not in a statistically significant way. So it's kind of a wash. So
right. And we do try to preach to buy local, what you can get. Eggs, if you do eggs, that's a really great way to introduction to local. Yeah, you're paying more, but it's less. Paying $8 for a carton of eggs sounds crazy when you're talking about eggs, but when you're comparing meat at $7, $8, $10 a pound to $24 a pound grass-fed organic ribeye, that's a much harder stretch for more people. And yeah, regenerative is better for the environment. Don't get the desertification of many different lands and things like that. And we have other videos on this. So go subscribe to our channel, search for these videos. They're really great. Lots of great information. We even did the video on, what was that movie about the cows and the Sean came on Sacred Cow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
great.
Anyways, if you haven't tried Dr. Gundry's shake and you liked it, let us know. And maybe you got some comments about it. Maybe it has its place in some people's diets, but I figured Gundry's been out there for a while. He's writing books and selling shakes. He's got other products, all kinds of other supplements he sells. So anyways, I figure it was fair to explore it a little bit. And we hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think. And until next time, eat some meat, feel better. Whatever you do,
don't trust Dr. Gundry.